welcome back to the Scrappy Leader podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week, as I think we have someone that is going to be speaking that all of you are going to find a connection with on some level. Lindsay Phillips is our speaker today. Lindsay is the co-founder and chief operating officer of SkyPhi Studios, a change firm that delivers transformative success by empowering organizations to realize the full value of their digital investments. While she's spoken on national stages such as Forbes CIO Summit and Austin Tech Week, she's most proud of the team culture that she has helped build at SkyPhi. Lindsay lives in Austin with 2 dogs and 5 chickens. Yes, she is that unique person that statement describes. So I'm really excited to have you join me in welcoming Lindsay Phillips to the Scrappy Leader podcast. Lindsay, I'm so excited to have you here on the Scrappy Leader podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I am glad to have you here. So you and I have known each other for about a year now, been working together for about a year now, and I'm so excited for you to be able to share your leadership journey, because it's one that I find so interesting, and I know my audience will also just love learning from you. So just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder and COO of a consulting firm called SkyPhi Studios, but I started out my journey. It's kind of the American dream story that you don't hear that often. I graduated from college, could not find a job to save my life because it was 2007, middle of the recession, and went to a temp agency, and I started out as a receptionist. And so I started out answering phones for 2.5, 3 years, kind of worked my way up from there into project management and organizational change management. And I was given a lot of sort of opportunities internal to the company I worked for at the time. And so it's very cool. And it's one of the reasons I'm a big believer in mentorship and giving people opportunities to try new things.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's very cool. And you don't hear it a whole lot anymore. But about 3 years ago, I decided to start my own company and branched out, started my own firm, and then ended up meeting my now partner at a client, and we started SkyPhi together. So it's been, it's been quite a journey from answering the phones 15 years ago.
Yeah, we definitely all have our journeys. That is so true. So why don't you talk with us a little bit about SkyPhi and what makes SkyPhi as unique as it is?
Yeah. So I don't come from consulting. I kind of grew up in industry, but my partner has a lot of consulting experience. And we were kind of looking at the same problem from different sides, me from kind of coming internal to clients and her on the consulting side. And we're trying to build a different type of consulting firm that leaves a lot of the agency and the humanity in the relationship with our consultants. For folks who aren't familiar, most consultants are told to be on site at the client in a suit, 8 a.m., doesn't matter. If you miss your flight, make it work. If your mother died, make it work. Like, you don't get to be a real full human being as a consultant. You are an extension of the company. And we really believe, and we really think that if you center human beings and you center humanity, everyone will benefit. It will bring a better result to the client. The consultants will have a better experience. And then as a company, it's also just a more pleasant place to work if we can all just be real with each other. And so,
what a novel concept.
Yeah. But it's very different. And so we're having to kind of figure it out. There's no real model or roadmap for what we're trying to do. And so it's working, but it's kind of scary sometimes because we're not following the traditional path. And so we're figuring it out as we go.
I was so impressed with how the group really supported each other and wrapped each other around the community that you and Courtney have built. And I think that what happened around the holiday season last year was a beautiful expression of the community that you've built within SkyPhi. Could you tell us what happened around the holidays last year?
Yeah. So one of our team members is working with us part-time. And that's one of the things we like to offer is part-time work for folks who have other things going on in their lives, whether that's hobbies or volunteer work or their families, like whatever it is, it's like we should be able to work as much or as little as we want. And so we have one woman on our team who spends half of her time working with local foster youth. And she was organizing a big Christmas party for the foster youth in her community. And the SkyPhi team, it was just such a pleasure. Oh, can you hear that? It's my dog.
It's okay. It's okay.
Um,
Human moment.
I know. I was like, oh my goodness. Hold on just a second. It was just such a pleasure to be able to support her and to have the SkyPhi team. We were all able to donate and buy from her Amazon shopping list and just get to participate in something that's really more important than consulting work, if we're being honest. Like supporting foster youth is such a human, real thing that we can do.
It is. And I have to say that the person that was on our team shared wonderful pictures of all of the gifts that those kids got. And one thing I want to point out is that we are based all over the country. We're not in one community. So people were reaching out to support our team member and then also to support foster youth in that one community. And even though it wasn't necessarily their community. And that's pretty impressive if you take a step back and think about how often that would happen in other scenarios. But that's what you guys have built, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it was very special, and it almost, it's almost an accident because she just happens to have that going on in her life because it's something she's really passionate about. And so it's something we're going to continue to grow and evolve is how can we all come together and support the causes we're passionate about and that our team members are passionate about. And so more to come, I hope.
I hope so too. I think that that's one of the things that really differentiates you guys. Lindsay, I would love to hear kind of some of your lessons learned. Like you work really, really hard to have SkyPhi work and have enough income to support your family. What are some ways that being scrappy maybe hasn't served you well?
So I think the things that serve us early in our careers, and for me, it was a lot of like rolling up my sleeves and being willing to do kind of whatever the team needed and making it happen it got me to a certain point in my career, but you have to start to learn new ways of working if you want to get somewhere new and somewhere different. And so I think the tendency to overfunction, I think a lot of us in this space probably have that. And it's really easy to burn ourselves out. And so that's been one of the bigger challenges for me is, I come from project management space where it's a sprint, not a marathon. And so I'm used to working really hard, but for specific periods of time. And owning your own business, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I've really had to learn how to dial it back, how to let things go, and, really trust the team to get it done in the way that they want to get it done. And it might be different than the way I would do it, but it's, you just have to really stop over functioning if you want to be able to last, really.
I love that you call it over functioning. It is. It's almost trying to control things that are out of your control, if you will. How have you done that?
Well, I don't, some of it was sort of forced, right? Like at some point you just have to let things happen and they're going to happen regardless. And it was also, I think it helps having clear roles and responsibilities. And that's something we've been focusing on this year is we want to have clear process, have clear roles and responsibilities. And if someone on the team does something differently than I would do it, but it's not in my swim lane, even if I'm the, owner of the business, it's still their work to own. And so I am accountable for it being done, but they're responsible for making it happen in the way that they want to make it happen. And so it's been really freeing in a lot of ways of just like, you know what, it's not something I have to do and it's not my problem to solve. And if they need my support, they can ask for it and they know that they have it. And so I think that has been a big thing for me is very clear roles and responsibilities. And then me holding myself to not micromanaging people through that.
Yeah. Well, and you've got several team members now that are at multiple different clients, it would be next to impossible to micromanage that, or you'd
Right.
go insane.
Right. Yeah.
So
So
when
it's,
you go ahead.
yeah, I think we've been very careful about bringing in folks who are experts in their field, and they can be different from us, but we still want to be able to trust that they'll get it done. And so, I don't always love when companies talk about like cultural fit, because sometimes that can exclude people who are different, and it really kind of promotes like a monoculture. We're trying to avoid that, but we are looking for people who we know can get it done, and we can absolutely trust that it will be done correctly.
Yeah, experts in their own right, even though it
Mhm.
may be in an area that's different than what you or Courtney have identified.
Yeah, and we all have our own style, and I have a very
Mm,
particular style that doesn't work for a lot of people, and so I have to trust other people's styles of getting things done. And it's great. It's very freeing once you can do that.
that's awesome. So when you do hit that wall, when you have overproduced, as you will, how do you take? What kinds of things do you do to take care of yourself?
Hmm. Well, I do a lot of downtime on the weekends. And so I love to garden. I love to be out in nature. And so I will try to get, out of the house as much as possible because I work from home. But I also try to do as much relaxation as possible because we're living in a world right now that is constantly changing. And that change is just such a psychological burden. We really have to allow ourselves time to rest and relax.
I completely agree. It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's things that are so far out of our control, but yet they do have an impact on how we show up, how we process information, how able to take on additional change we are. It goes back to that whole change fatigue phenomenon that there's only so much a human being can really take. So, and I know that you get that thoroughly. So,
Yeah.
I I know you've got a lot of lessons learned that you have gained over the years. What kind of advice would you give to people, women that are out there trying to start their own thing or dreaming of it?
Mm. For me, I've always had a side hustle, and most of my side hustles didn't really go anywhere. And so for me, finding a partner and then building a team has been instrumental to building something that will last, because we have different strengths and we have different weaknesses, and I can't do everything. I literally cannot do it all. And if you can find a partner who balances you and brings strengths that are different from your strengths, um, that will just like help lighten the load, but it will also help motivate you. Because there have been times over the last 6 months where I was like, this is a lot of work. And if it were just me, I for sure would quit. But I can't quit because I now have a team around me that depends on this being successful. And I want it to be successful for them too. So I would say finding your tribe and building a team that can support you through building whatever it is you want to build is number one.
I love that. So how did you know how did you know that this was your tribe and the perfect partner for your business?
I don't know that I knew when we started. Wasn't really until we got going that we realized just how much we complemented each other and the things that we naturally do. When it was early and it was just the two of us, if something came up and we had a problem to solve, we just naturally split off into tackling different angles of the problem. And so we really kind of naturally fell into roles that gave the other one room to run. And then also like we do things that the other doesn't like naturally. I'm not like a numbers person. I don't naturally do that. And luckily Courtney has such a head for numbers. And so she works with our CFO and manages all the sort of accounting and the legal aspects of the company in a way that I could do it, but it would be such a burden and such a lift for me to try to take care of that myself.
I
And then
bet.
I'm more focused on the team and the organization and the operations of how the team is functioning. And that's something that fills my cup that doesn't fill her cup. She can do it, but it doesn't necessarily like light her up the way it lights me up. And so we were really, really lucky that we just happened to be different in that way. When we started SkyPhi, it was really, she just had an idea. And I said, I would love to partner with you on that if you ever want to. And she talked to her wife. And then 3 months later, she called me up and said, okay, let's do it. And so we really didn't know until we got into it. And in
Wow.
fact, yeah, the first time I met her in person, because at the time she was living in Florida and I live in Texas. The first time I met her was when we had to get together in person to go apply for a bank account together. And I was so nervous because I was like, I've never been with this person in real life
Oh my
before.
gosh.
And if we don't like each other, or it was like, I was like more nervous than a date because I was like, we're like legally bound at this point. We've started a company together. And so luckily, like we just, we get along great and it went wonderfully, but we were really, really lucky. So I unfortunately don't have much advice on how to find somebody
Picking.
like that
Yep.
other
Where did you
than
guys find each other?
we were both placed at the same client. And so
Oh, okay.
I was basically project managing a team, and she was one of the resources on the team. And she was always, she always had her act together and was very easy to work with. And so I knew that about her. And I also knew she, took herself seriously and did excellent work. And so that's kind of all I knew about her at that point. And so
There you go.
and then 3 years later, here we are,
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So when you do hit those walls and you're having a hard time being motivated, do you do anything special to kind of refocus yourself?
I do tend to, I like to do morning pages. So if I'm, just like journaling, I like to journal in the morning around like the things that are motivating to me. And I'm also lucky enough, we have a woman on our team who helps with PR and marketing. And so we get to do a lot of just thought leadership exercises as part of the company because we want to be kind of cutting edge, and we want to be thought leaders in this space. And that to me is really energizing. And so when I'm getting bogged down in, 1099 documentation, that's not what lights me up. But I get to still play with these thought experiments in a way that keeps me motivated and keeps me going. So that's been just like such a delight.
That's awesome. That is really awesome.
Mm.
So any additional advice for folks that are out there starting their careers or midway in their careers that are looking for something a little different?
I don't know if advice. So when I had a W-2, I was just keenly aware that other people were profiting from my labor. And it almost didn't matter how much more I produced. Like I would get raises and bonuses, but the company would get exponentially more returns on my labor. And so I think if you're finding yourself wrestling with that, then it is a good idea or a good time maybe to start playing with the idea of starting your own company. But it is a long haul, and there will be times where you're not benefiting monetarily from your labor yet. And so you really have to be willing to bet on yourself and just really believe that you can make it and you can make it work.
And it's hard. It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
And you have to know that going into it. And like you said, though, take the leap, bet on yourself, and go for it.
Yeah. And again, if you surround yourself with people who are also willing to bet on you and who you're willing to bet on, then it's going to carry you much further than if you're just trying to do it on your own.
Totally agree. I had my last guest called it lassoing your cheerleaders. And I was like, wow, that's a really good thought process.
I love that. Yeah.
But it's so important. We depend on our, as you called them, our tribe to help us through these rough spots. And whether it's in, owning your own company or going through relationship trials and tribulations or dealing with raising kids. I know neither you nor I have that experience at this time, but I mean, I watched my sister do it. You still need a tribe to help you out and get you through all these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are times where you get tired or times where you just can't quite see the future, and to have someone else who can remind you of what you're trying to build and remind you that you are capable, it keeps you going when you are kind of low on your own steam.
Completely agree. I have done accountability partners with several of my peers over the years, and I loved being able to do ideation sessions with them because they would push me to think more broadly. They would push me to challenge myself a little bit more, set those goals that were a little bit further out there. And that was one of the things that I love about our weekly meetings with SkyPhi is, you know, ideating on what good looks like and how can we make this organization. And I love that you do this. You actually ask us, your team members, what we think is going to work well. When does that happen? And then you play on that.
Well, to me, it's so obvious. Like, yeah, like how would there's, I think we all only have one perspective. And so it really behooves us to gather other perspectives. And I also think
Sure.
we have a lot of assumptions that other people can help us challenge. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love our weekly meetings, and everyone in the calls are very different. Like, even though we come from similar work backgrounds, the way we solve problems and the perspectives we have are very different.
Oh, and the
Um,
ideas that are shared. And it's amazing to see people build on those ideas in different ways. It's like, oh, wow, I would have never gotten there. That's so cool.
yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of having our company. And I also, I guess, something else I'm very proud of with SkyPhi is, right now, everyone delivering for us is contractors. In fact, we don't have any employees at this point because we're still so kind of early in our journey. And I think in the next week, year or so, we'll probably start hiring some W-2 employees. But we try not to differentiate between employees and contractors. Like, ultimately, we're all team members. Ultimately, everyone's success will lead to SkyPhi's success. And so I think if someone is early in their sort of building a business and trying to think through who are my team members, they don't even necessarily have to work for you. They could just be a partner in some way, or be
Mm-hmm.
somebody else who, I would just consider them part of your team and bounce ideas off of them, or see if there's other ways that you could solve problems that they might be able to help you with. And so I guess that would be another way to build your team or your tribe if you're early and you can't quite afford to hire employees yet.
Totally agree. I've heard that referred to as your board of directors. And I never really, like, that never really sat well with me. Like, when you describe it as a tribe, that feels far more comfortable for me. I'm a scrappy leader. I don't necessarily like the formality of board of directors. But yeah, so you get your tribe, your people that look at things differently, that can sit around you and say, "Have you thought about?" And then I think the unique thing that I've seen is that you get us all together at one time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like when I do my accountability partners, it's with one person for a set period of time. But what you've created is a group of people that come together and talk about, what they're dreaming about or what they would like to experience or different ways of approaching things all together so that they can build on each other's ideas. And that's what I think is just it's such a unique identifier for SkyPhi.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really special to have it come together. And one of the, as people roll off of SkyPhi contracts, we're trying to figure out how we maintain that connection with people who maybe aren't working with us directly. And so
Hmm.
it's going to keep changing and growing. And as the team grows, at some point, we're going to probably have to break into smaller groups. But how do we maintain that same sense of like camaraderie and connection and support? That's going to be that's forefront in my mind as we grow and as we scale.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I want to emphasize here is that it's not just support for SkyPhi.
Mm-mm.
SkyPhi turns around and tries to figure out how they can support each team member. And that, again, not something you see every day, which I just think is really beautiful. Lindsay, you want to talk a little bit about the roster? I think this is another really cool concept that you guys have.
Yeah. So at most consulting firms, and granted, at most consulting firms, the people who are working there are employees. And so if you're placed on a client, you're placed on a client. And if you're not, you're considered on the bench. And generally in consulting firms, it's bad to be on the bench. It's risky. And there's sort of just this understanding that your role might be cut if they don't find work for you quickly enough. And it really, to me, it's one of those sort of challenging elements that kind of strips the humanity out of traditional consulting. And because we're pursuing this contractor model, which allows people to work part-time, it keeps the agency in their hands about whether or not they even want to take work, which is also not something you don't get to say no. If you work at a consulting firm, you have to
Oh,
take
no.
the clients that you're given. And so, we still wanted to have a pool of folks that we could pull from. And so we didn't want to call it the bench. We call it the roster. It's our sort of group of players who are not playing right now, but are, ready to step in if they need to. And we're really working to build not quite the same like level of connection as with our delivery team, but a sense of how can we all help each other and how can we all support each other as we build our own, that we have a lot of folks in the roster who are solopreneurs, and they need that sense of connection and community. And so it gives them like a broader network to build from. And then it's great for us because, if we have a last minute client ask come up, we can just email the roster and say, hey, does anyone want this? It's going to be X number of hours over X number of weeks. And generally someone wants it. And so it's it's a give. It's like a win-win situation where if we just put a little bit of structure around it, everyone can benefit from this organization.
And I love that. And the other thing that I think it really brings a lot of value to your clients are the fact that you've got so many different skill sets, different specialties on that roster. So if someone calls up and they need a unicorn, you probably have that unicorn on your roster somewhere, which I think is it's really cool. And the other thing that I love is that you don't just put anyone on that roster. They interview and then they're invited to join that roster.
Yeah, because as I was saying, we can't micromanage the people who are placed at our clients. And so it's important that they reflect the same sort of values that SkyPhi has and reflect the same level of professionalism that we expect. So it is, you don't necessarily get interviewed to be placed at a client, but you're interviewed to join the roster. And then we basically pull from the roster to place at our contracts with our clients. And so it's a different model that I've never seen it before, but it's working really well. And to your point of, this isn't this level of support. Oh, you don't see it that often from a company perspective. And to me, you should, because it makes good financial sense.
Why not?
From our perspective, we want people who want to work with us so that they keep coming back. We don't lose the knowledge. We don't lose the experience. And it just helps build the value of our company if we have people who want to work with us. And so it's not that hard to create a space that people want to be part of and people feel supported in. And so it really is, I really do believe that if you can center the people of your team, your business will benefit.
I love that. Lindsay, anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
I mean, I think, one thing I have been surprised by, and in podcasts or in stories, you hear a lot about the wins, and it is, it does often feel like you're kind of groping to figure out where you're going to go, and you don't necessarily know what the next step is. And that, I think, has been the biggest challenge for me, is I'm used to having a roadmap and a project plan, and we don't have that anymore. And,
right.
We're figuring it out as we go, and we have to respond to market, and we have to respond to client demands. And so I think being willing and able to pivot, and also being able to tolerate that uncertainty and that sort of lack of knowing exactly what's going to happen, but being able to have faith that it's going to go well, I think it's a skill set that we would all benefit from practicing. And I'm certainly being forced to practice it on a daily basis now.
Yes. It's almost like going off-roading. You're no longer on the highway system. You are on a dirt trail, and sometimes you have to pave your own trail. And I think that's kind of what I think about it. And to keep yourself safe inside any vehicle that's going off-roading, you need to be able to support yourself with good core strength. For those of us that are into the female health thought process. But that's kind of what I think about, is that you've got to take care of yourself, take care of your team, maintain that core strength so that when you do go off-roading and you're without that project plan, you actually have the ability to navigate and
Mm.
be successful.
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly what it feels like. And sometimes
Yeah,
it's
I'm
real
sure it
bumpy.
does. And sometimes you're on the edge of a cliff and you're just really hoping you don't go over.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, thank you so much for your time today. I sincerely appreciate it. You have been a gem. Can you tell us can you lay out where people can find you and how they can contact you?
Yeah, our website is skyphistudios.com, and I am on LinkedIn. So if people want to look me up on LinkedIn, it's Lindsay Phillips, PMP at SkyPhi.
And perfect. And we will put all your links into the show notes so that everyone can get access to you. Thank you again so much for joining us today. And so long for now. We'll see you all next week.